Welcome to another Fine By Wines video podcast. So I thought what I'd do this week is look at a wine or a style of wine that lots of us drink, look at a lower end or a cheaper end wine and a slightly more expensive wine. I thought I'd do them both blind so I don't know which one I'm having, tell you my thoughts on it and why is there any benefit to going up in price. So what's that style of wine? It's Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris depending on what type. So first off, Pinot Gris, that's French. And Pinot Grigio that's the Italian name. Pinot Grigio tends to be the cheaper style, so you can get Pinot Grigio from outside of Italy, so countries that tend to call their wines Pinot Grigio are associating themselves with that cheaper Italian style, and not all Italian Pinot Grigio is cheap. And Pinot Gris is the French name, and they tend to make slightly more upmarket, slightly more expensive Pinot Gris. And so if you're from another country and you're stylistically trying to show that you're perhaps a bit more upmarket, you probably label it Pinot Gris. So two blind wines. What I've done is I've put, because for no reason, there's a 3 and a 6. That's the 6. That's the 3. So I've put a little tiny 3 so I can't really see it, and a 6 underneath that one. So I should probably put these the right way around. And then all I'm going to do is pour each one out. And we'll talk about both of these wines separately. Oh, that was a bit of a bang. We'll talk about them separately. Talk about what we should partner them with, what sort of prices you should pay. Does price affect it? And not just that, but in general, what's the consensus around Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris? So all I'm going to do now is, so that I'm just going to talk and keep swapping these glasses around, but I'm not paying attention to the glasses. So what do you eat with a Pinot Grigio? Well, Pinot Grigio is sort of for obvious reasons. It's Pinot Grigio is a light wine. It's going to have apple, lemon, those flavours, pear. Very light, very sort of almost getting to the neutral end of a wine flavour profile. So you want to pair it with something that's simple and light. White fish, vegetables, those sort of things. Nothing too heavy, no heavy sauces, nothing rich. You could put it with a green salad or something along those lines. Very clean chicken, like a lemony chicken maybe in the salad. That would be okay. That's probably about your upper limits of richness in flavour that you're going to be able to put with a Pinot Grigio. Pinot Gris, on the other hand, very, very aromatic. Very aromatic. And so what does an aromatic wine enable you to do? Well, it enables you to put it with things like a curry. So like a Thai curry, you could definitely do that. Moroccan food, you could definitely put a Pinot Gris with that. You can do it with mushroom sauces. Mushroom sauces are really difficult to put a wine with, but you could do it with a Pinot Gris. So where's your classic Pinot Gris regions? Well, Alsace in France make fantastic wines, and also for their higher end wines, you get them at a much better price than a lot of the other French regions. I mean, I've paid Grand Cru Alsace under 20 quid. You can get some of them from. So, I mean, that's incredible. This particular, whichever one it is, Pinot Gris actually is a Grauburgunder. Grauburgunder is German, and Germany also makes some phenomenal Pinot Gris. Very good prices for their Pinot Gris. This one in particular cost me about £16, something like that. So Pinot Gris from Germany, fantastic. You can go to Oregon, you can go to New Zealand, and those places like that will also produce really good Pinot Grigio. So Pinot Grigio, this one I got in Co-op, and it was £5.25. I think most people, when they buy a Pinot Grigio, they're not looking to spend much more than £5. I was in M&S not long ago, and M&S do their Pinot Grigio for £7, £8, £9. They've got a £10 Pinot Grigio. We'll explain why it's a little bit cheaper. So let's have a little look. Just visually, straight away, I'm saying that one's the Pinot Gris and that one's the Grigio. Why? richer in colour. So this one, very, very pale lemon in colour. very pale lemon in colour. This one here, it's still a pale lemon, but it's more of a medium lemon. It's coming up to that medium lemon. Okay, so I'm going to give this one a little nose. Let's see what's going on. So nice little swirl here, and yeah, so this is a really rich aromatic wine. So I'm very much inclined to say that this is the Gris. So what are we getting? So a really beautiful pear, not like a mushy pear, like a real rich, delicious, tasty pear here. I'm getting sort of like the waxiness of perhaps an apple skin. You know, like when you get like a really shiny apple skin. Yeah, so that sort of waxy apple skin on the nose. What else? Perhaps even like perhaps even actual wax, like a beeswax kind of nose, and a little bit of a herbal note to it. Not too strong, just delicate in the background, a little herbal note, and no, quite a strong herbal note actually. That just kind of really washed over me then. It really released itself. I don't want to say like like a mixture of herbe de Provence, that kind of smell. Really, really lovely that is on the nose. Okay, and then with this one, so this is the one I think is the Grigio, just because it's lighter in colour. Okay, so this, I'll tell you what, right, definitely smells lighter. Much lighter aromatically, so it's pushed me towards the Grigio thought. Strong pear, really strong pear. I mean that is almost pure pear. Yeah, it's pear. I mean, there's nothing else to that than pear, which leads me to believe it's the Grigio, the cheaper. It's pear, it's light. So I'm going to drink this one first. It's the lighter in the aromas. I don't want to drink the more aromatically, the one that's more aromatic, I don't want to taste that one first. It'll perhaps kill this one, if I'm correct. So, let's have a little go. Yeah, it's very pear. Very linear. No complexity to it. It's a simple wine, that is. I strongly believe that this is the £5.25 co-op Pinot Grigio. So let's now try this one. So this is I've spoken about this before on previous podcasts. The aromatics of a wine bring so much, and when you're having a conversation and you want to have a good conversation over wine, aromatics enables you to do that. Like, even if you're having a silly evening, let's say you've got the boys around or the girls around or whatever, and you're just having a glass of wine, just that moment doesn't happen. With that wine, you go, oh, that's pear, that's really lovely, great, but it doesn't take you to the next level mentally, and you don't have a conversation. It doesn't invite interesting conversation about the wine. This one, oh yeah, I think I'd be very surprised if I'm wrong. So much richer, much more texture. This one is oilier, it coats the mouth, and I don't mean oily like a Viognier oiliness, but which is another, if you're not familiar with Viognier, very oily grape. But this one sort of really coats the mouth, and you get to pick up on those flavours. It's not like that. That's very delicate. This, it's ready to take on the task of something a bit heavier in terms of food. In fact, this is almost certainly a food wine. Very much those herbal notes on the palate. Sometimes with herbal flavours they can get toned down, I find, in a wine. You smell it, you taste it, and it sort of recedes. The pear, very much that richer, much richer than that one. And then the other thing to say with that is that waxiness, like a green waxy apple, definitely present. I'm I'm fairly convinced that this is the more expensive wine, and it is an exceptionally good wine. I'm now going to go back to the first wine, the pear. It's nothing but pear. Yeah, so this is why I tried this one first. After that, it's very difficult to pick up any flavour from this. It's there, you can pick it up, but it's not like, it's not dominant in your palate. So let's find out. So this one's number 3, and this one obviously is 6. So let's go with this one. So that's 6. So 6 is, right, yeah. So this is the Pinot Gris from Baden in Germany. So I'll pop that one there. And this one here is the Co-op Italian Pinot Grigio from Venice, or the Venezia area. So let's talk about that. What does that mean? We're like, why is there such a distinct difference in price and what you get from it? Well, I'm just going to pop them down there. Let's go through that. The difference is actually really, really simple. So the German is from Baden, which is pretty much the most southern growing region in Germany. So a southern region means warmer, more sunny, and therefore you get better ripeness from the grapes. Venice is even further south. However, it's grown in a completely different terrain. So the areas around Venice are flat, whereas in Germany they're known for growing on these very steep slopes. What's the difference? Steep slopes, so if the sun is above you, a steep slope gets the sun more direct. It's why in the northern hemisphere, in our winter, as the sun dips away, the light gets more spread out. It's like pointing a laser at a spoon, if you've ever done it. If you point it at the centre of the spoon, in a straight line, you get that perfect circle. But if you tilt it up towards the top end of a spoon, it spreads that light out. So it's the same on a slope. The sunlight is hitting it straight. That light is very concentrated compared to on a flat plain like Venice. The light's hitting it and being dispersed over a much larger area. So what does that mean? You get these richer fruits, very concentrated, more expensive. And the reason it's more expensive, hand harvested. So a lot of German wine, because of the steepness of the slopes, they can't have a machine pick those grapes, so they have to be hand harvested. So that takes time, effort, people, manpower, money. Whereas in Venice, everything can be done by machine. It's flat. They set their vineyards up for tractors to come down, collect the grapes, bang, you're in. So with this, you're getting that richness. What's the alcohol content in this? 13.5%. So that's on the higher level of medium in alcohol. You're not going to get high alcohol from a German Pinot Gris, and you wouldn't expect to, and you wouldn't want to. This is 12%, so much lighter in alcohol. Why? Well, you only get the higher alcohol comes from sugar ripeness. So you've got these beautiful grapes ripening in the sun. The more sugar they build up in those grapes, the higher the alcohol. Simple as that. So that's why in the Venetian style you get these lighter bodied, they don't ripen as early. The other thing with this is, when they're machine harvesting, and let's not confuse machine harvesting for a cheaper wine, but when they're getting these grapes, they're not looking to produce a really expensive wine. They're not looking to produce something that you're going to be paying more than £6-7 for. So every grape goes into the mix. When you're hand picking grapes, you're picking them and you're going, I want that grape in my wine. You're selecting them. It means that you can be more specific about what the wine is that you're creating. It's sort of the difference between an artist and a machine painting something. A machine could paint something, can paint something, but it's doing it like it's not got the human touch, is what I'm saying. Whereas with this, you are getting the human touch. Is it worth paying more for a Pinot Gris? I mean, we're talking about £10 more for that than that. Depends. You see, what's the point in spending more if you're not going to care, you're not going to take the time? Don't do it. There's no point. It's a waste of money. You've just thrown money down the drain. If you're literally just looking to sit around and have a glass of wine and give it no thought, the Grigio is the way forward. There's a reason it's out there. There's a reason it's in every supermarket at between £5, £6, £7. If you want a really good conversation and you're looking for a good wine, let's say you've got friends coming around and you're going to put on perhaps some spicy food, or you want to talk about the wine, a Pinot Gris is definitely a way forward. It's different to a Sauvignon Blanc. So a Sauvignon Blanc is definitely going to produce lemony flavours, perhaps peachy flavours. It's going to have a green sort of cut grass sort of flavour. This is different to that. This is very much on that pear, beeswax, herby, appley sort of flavours, the sort of waxy apple flavours. Very, very different wine. Is it going to be like a Chardonnay? Nope, it's nothing like a Chardonnay. It's not even similar. The only thing that's similar is it's white. So if you're not a Chardonnay fan, perhaps you're a Sauvignon Blanc fan, and you want something that's different and something you can have a conversation about, perhaps you want to pair it with your spicy food. The Gris is the way forward. And is it such a big deal to spend £15 on a bottle of wine? I don't think so. I don't think it is, because sometimes it's like spending £5 is between you and someone else, and you're not caring. When you've got friends around, I think there's part of the hospitality and the generosity and the kindness of it all. I don't think we have people around all the time, and so when you do, how nice is it to have something that's like you've covered all your bases? I think the Pinot Gris covers that moment. Where to get your Pinot Gris from? Look for Alsace Pinot Gris. Don't look on supermarkets. There's not going to be many supermarkets that produce a really good Alsatian Pinot Gris. But for under £20, around the £20 mark, you can get a Grand Cru Pinot Gris. So think about that. That's well worth some investigation. Germany, fantastic for Pinot Gris. You can go to America, so Oregon. They're really making some fantastic wines in Oregon at the moment. New Zealand, they make Pinot Gris. They make excellent quality wine. New Zealand is good quality across the board. They don't have a sort of low grade wine market. Never has been. It's always been premium wine. So New Zealand is very much a good way to go. Australia, and funnily enough, in the south of Australia, the little island of Tasmania, they make some great Pinot Gris. Definitely worth checking that out. If you find one, do it. Just examine it. So their climate is quite different to Australia, because they're just that little bit further south, and they're making some fantastic wine. I'm going to go back to the Grigio now. I will say this, at £5.25, it's not something I'd ever want. I wouldn't go out and buy that, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not a horrendous wine. It's just a bit nothingy. And that's the thing, I think, with all wine drinking, and really anything, food, drink, houses, clothing, cars, everything you purchase, when you step up, it's very difficult to go backwards. So if you don't want to know the difference, stay in your £5 market. You should never buy wine in the £5 market, to be clear, but if you don't want to know the difference and you're quite content, there's no reason to feel bad about liking a £5 bottle of wine. The only problem, and I repeatedly say this, with buying a £5 bottle of wine is the maker's getting nothing. It is mass produced and they're getting pennies per bottle, which is such it's a bit of a travesty really on the winemaker. If you're a good winemaker and you know you're producing something fantastic, and yeah, I just sort of think that's a travesty. Everybody should be trying to step up their game. Like if you were creating a business right now and you knew you were very, very good at something, you might have to sell your product at a very low price just to get it on the market, just to get it started. And then the next year you want to go up a bit. Why? Because you want to make a bit more money, because you want to be able to improve the product, you want to get new materials, new machines. It's the same for winemakers. A lot of little winemakers start off having to sell their wine at quite a low price just to get it on the market, just to get people to drink it. And then step up and step up and step up like any classic business. For winemakers, it can take decades to get to that point, and the reason being is because those vines have to age, and with the age of the vine, the grapes improve. But so with something like this will still be here in 20 years from now. You'll still be buying Pinot Grigio at rock bottom prices in supermarkets. They're not helping that winemaker to make the step forward at all, because they're getting pennies per bottle. So they just have to make as many. Imagine having to, so I think it's about 20p a bottle on that. So if you're selling at 20 pence a bottle, you'd need to make 5 bottles for £1. And so what would that be? If you wanted to make £20,000 in a year, which, you know, that would be a nightmare to live on £20,000 for a year. You've got to get a house and everything. 20,000 bottles, 100,000 bottles to get 20 grand. 100,000 bottles. Think about the machinery, think about the labour, think about everything to produce 100,000 bottles. Ooh. Doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? When you actually say that out loud, imagine someone said to make 20 grand, you've got to produce 100,000 of something, and a labour-intensive thing like wine. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's almost a bit like slave labour, which is why it's not helping the wine industry if you just only buy a £5 bottle of wine. Every now and then, treat yourself. Get yourself a £10 bottle of wine, a £15 bottle of wine. There's your Goldilocks zone, that £10 to £15 bottle of wine. What else would I think about with all of these things? White wine, as I think lots of people, when they buy a luxury wine, they buy a red wine. If you're a layman, you go, right, luxury wine, red wine. There's so much to be found in luxury white wine, and Pinot Gris is definitely worth it. Very aromatic. So this, I mean, I'm getting a bit of smoke off that. Right, so I've come back to it. Yeah, that beeswax is beautiful. Oh man. Right, and this is what I'm talking about. For a conversation, there's beeswax. There's a little touch of smoke on that. Oh yeah, it's, you know, like when you blow a candle out and you get that wisp of smoke, that wax and then the smoke, and that is, yeah, fantastic. That is a genuinely gorgeous in aromas wine, and then you get that translated in flavour, because flavour and smell are basically the same sense. So when you're drinking this, gorgeous. I could drink that every day. This, I'd never go back and buy again. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying I'd never go back and buy it again. Right, enough of the wine talk about this. Next week I'll have a look at another wine. What's been going on? Well, so today chatting to a friend of ours, and their whole family's had COVID-19. So her dad ended up in hospital. Not good. But it does look like we're starting to make some progress in life, so that's cool. If you're suffering with it and you're stuck indoors and you've listened to this, thanks very much for listening. Keep yourself mentally sane. I don't know how you keep yourself mentally sane, but just find a way to keep mentally sane. Keep busy, do things. What else? Starting my Spanish wine scholar education. The actual course doesn't start just yet. It's starting in a few weeks, but the guy taking our course managed to get the books for us and sent them out. Really excited about that. Spain, fantastic place to look for wine. So probably in a few weeks' time when I start that, I'll probably have quite a few Spanish podcast weeks, or Spanish wine podcast weeks. And I'm tempted to start learning a bit of Spanish. Like I've got a bit of French. I can listen to French and understand it to a certain extent. And now I'm thinking, maybe I should do a bit of Spanish as well, because hey, why not? And my wife, she speaks fluent French, and she can speak a bit of Spanish, so might be worth trying to learn a little bit of that. All in all, though, really love doing this. I'm just looking at my camera right now, and I'm thinking, I think I've got this focused not on me, but right there. think that's the spot. And so if you're listening in on this means nothing. But don't worry about it. It's just a spot on the couch as opposed to at me. And do you like my little den? I think it's kind of cool. It's just such a little small room, but it's got everything I need in terms of being able to film. And I still haven't got this guitar up on the wall. I've got to get it done, but no shops are open to get a clamp. And I really want to go to a shop for a clamp as opposed to buying on Amazon. I'm trying to avoid buying on Amazon. Just because I think they're taking over the world, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am a little bit, but I just don't want to keep ploughing my money into that mega corporation. It scares me a little bit. Beyond that, go out and buy a Pinot Gris. Definitely buy a Pinot Gris, and buy every now and then. Maybe set yourself, like if you sit there and drink wine and you spend £5 on a bottle of wine, maybe once a month, just spend a little bit more. If you can't afford once a month, once every 2 months, or hold back. If you only drink wine on certain days, take the day off, take 2 days off, and then spend that little bit extra, and go into a wine dealer, perhaps like a small independent retailer. You'll discover things that you didn't know. Go in, talk. They won't treat you like an idiot, and if they do, they're the idiot. You know, go in there. Tell them what you like, tell them about your preferences, and say you want to spend just a little bit extra for a much better experience. They'll be able to tell you about it. They'll be able to help you. I promise you that. I'm coming back for another sip. Oh, it's so good. It's so good, this Pinot Gris. You see, the thing with Pinot Gris is it's not a high acid wine. It's some sort of medium. And it's not so light. It's not like the lightness of a Sauvignon Blanc. It's a little bit weightier. It's a little bit more round. I really like it. I really like it. So there's my recommendation. Try a Pinot Gris. If you drink Pinot Grigio, you shouldn't feel bad about it. Like I'm not one of those people who goes, oh, Pinot Grigio. No, if you like it, and you should drink it. My recommendation is just to try something a little bit more upmarket. And remember, spicy food, Thai, Moroccan food, things like that. You can put it with salmon. That's really, really difficult with wine. Salmon is one of the hardest foods you can put with mushroom sauces. Very, very difficult foods to pair. It'll work. It'll do it. It'll handle it. It's of good enough quality. Whereas this cannot. So remember this, green salads, white fish, what else? Grilled veg. Grilled veg. It can handle grilled veg. Outside of that, it's too light for anything else. It's not really a food wine. This is more of a sitting around with your friends, not really caring kind of wine. Anyway, end of the podcast, and hopefully next week have something really special as well. Lots of love to you all. Keep safe, keep healthy, and hopefully soon we'll be out the other side of this.